Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Prince Automation Destination. This side Prince. I hope you are doing well. So today we are going to continue our discussion on deserialization techniques, and as part of today's discussion, we are going to discuss about how to deserialize a JSON response into Pojo classes with the help of object mapper. So without further delay, let me jump onto the discussion. So first of all, let us try to understand the use case. So when we work in API automation, at that point of time, after hitting an API request, we get the JSON response. Now we need to validate this particular response. So how to validate that particular response? So one way is we can convert this particular JSON response into JSON path, and we can get the individual field, and we can validate the same against the expected output. But this is not going to be helpful when we will have complex JSON. So what is the alternative? We can convert the API response that is in JSON format to Java objects, right? And then we can validate the response with the help of Java objects. So the process of converting this JSON response into Java object is known as deserialization, and this is how we can use deserialization in API automation. Now these Java objects would be in the form of Pojo classes or record classes. For record, we have already created a series. You can check out the same in icon. Record is a special class introduced in JDK 17. And today we are going to talk about Pojo, meaning we are going to deserialize the JSON response into Pojo classes, right? But before that, let us quickly recap what we have covered so far. So we have already talked about what is deserialization. That is the process of converting the stream of bytes into Java objects. So in case of API automation, we are converting JSON response into Pojo classes. So JSON response here is stream of bytes, which is sent over the network. Also, we discussed about how we can validate the API response without using any deserialization technique, that is using JSON path. Also, we discussed about different ways of constructing Pojo classes. So in case you want to understand more on this, you can check out the same in icon. Now coming to the main topic of the discussion today. So we are going to talk about how we can deserialize the JSON response into Pojo classes with the help of object mapper. So for this, first of all, we will have to add one dependency, that is Jackson data bind. This is most widely used library. Then we need to use this particular date value method. So without further delay, let me jump onto the practical demonstration. Okay. So for this particular demonstration, I'm going to consider this particular sample endpoint, which is for creation of booking. So what this particular endpoint is all about. So this is a post request, and it has this as a base URI. This is the endpoint. It accepts content type as application JSON, and this is the body, right? And after hitting this particular request, we will get a response something like this, right? So now we need to validate this particular response, and we are going to create Pojo corresponding to this particular response, right? So now I'm going to this particular framework. Okay. So this is a sample Maven project which has REST assured dependency and this particular Jackson data bind. So this is to hit the API request, and this is to deserialize the JSON response into Pojo classes with the help of object mapper. So I'm going to this particular SRC test in Java and deserialization Pojo. Here I have created three packages: API, Pojo, and Utils. Under API, I'm going to create a request, that is create booking, because we are going to create a booking. Okay, so we have created this particular class. Now let us add one main method. Okay, so using REST assured, we are going to hit this particular request. So REST assured follows given when then. So same thing we are going to follow. In case you want to understand more on REST assured, there is a series already going on. You can check out the same in icon. So REST assured dot given to construct the request. So first of all, we need to provide base URI. So how we can get the base URI? So we can get it from here itself. So this is the base URI. Okay, so base URI, then it need content type. So this is how we can pass content type using this particular content type.json, right? So now we have provided the base URI, we have provided the content type. Next thing what we need to pass is body, because this particular request accept the body. So I'm going to copy this particular body and going to put it under SRC test resources, right? Because this is a resource. So I'm going to create a file and let us name it like booking.json, right? So let me copy it. Let me make some modification in first name and last name, Prince Kumar. Let us keep rest of the things as it is, right? Now what we need to do, we need to read this particular file. So how we can do that? So for that purpose, I'm going to use file. equal to new file. So we have created object of file, and we need to simply provide the path of this. So I'm going to right click on this, copy path, copy the path from content root, and simply provide it here, right? And we can directly pass it to this particular body, right? Because body can directly use it. So now what I'm going to do is, next thing is I'm going to move it to next time, right? So we have constructed the request. Next thing is we are going to hit the request. So for that purpose, I'm going to use when method, right? This is how REST should work. Then we are going to make a post call. So here we can provide the endpoint. So what is the endpoint? This is going to be the endpoint, right? So let me provide it here, right? So we have hit the request. Now we need to get the response. So then dot extract dot response, right? Okay, so we got the response. So we can store it into response object. Okay, so far we are able to hit the request and we are able to get the response, right? So let us verify the same. Response dot as string, right? And let us try to run this and verify that we are able to hit it. So you see, we are able to get the response, meaning we have like properly constructed this particular REST assured syntax to hit the API request. Okay, so now we have already covered like how we can validate it using JSON path. I'm not going to cover that. What we are going to talk about now is we are going to create a Pojo class corresponding to this particular response, right? So I'm simply going to copy this particular response, right? And I'm going to use some inbuilt IntelliJ plugin, which I have already covered in the previous video. You can check on the same in icon and understand different ways of constructing Pojos, right? So here I'm going to click on Pojo, new, generate Pojo from JSON, and I'm going to provide it here. I'm not going to choose any option. And let us give the root object name as customer bouquet, right? So if you will notice, it has created these three Pojos. So let us try to compare it, right? So for that purpose, I'll be going to this particular sample response, right? Okay. So first of all, this is the main, right? So it has booking and booking ID, right? So this is booking ID and this is booking. So for booking also, it has created another Pojo class. So if I go to booking, it has created first name, last name, total price, deposit paid. So first name, last name. So you'll somewhere find last name, booking dates, additional dates. So for booking dates also, it has created another Pojo, right? So this is how it has constructed automatically, and it has added get trend setter as well, corresponding to whatever the previous it has added, right? So now we have created the Pojos, right? And we have got the response as well. Next thing is we need to write one utility to convert or deserialize this particular response into Pojo. So for that purpose, what we need is I'm going to simply create a JSON util or Jackson util. Maybe we call it as JSON util. Okay, and let us create a static method, public static, right? And what it is going to give is it is going to give customer booking. You'll simply understand now why it will be returning this, right? So JSON to Pojo. Let us give the name JSON to Pojo, right? And it is going to expect the response. So string JSON response. Okay. And I'm simply writing it first, then you will understand, right? So here I'm going to use object mapper. So how this object mapper is coming? This is coming because of Jackson data bind library, right? So object mapper equal to new object mapper. So we have created object of object mapper, right? So now the next thing is object mapper dot read value, right? It need JSON response or JSON string as an input, right? And now we need to provide the Pojo class to which we want to convert this JSON response to, or to which we want to map to. So we need to provide the main Pojo class. So what is the main Pojo class? So if you take a look at this, so this is the main Pojo class, because if I go here, this is the main JSON object, right? So corresponding to this, whatever is the Pojo class that we need to provide here. So if you take a look at this contains booking and booking ID, meaning it has everything. So I'm going to come here and going to provide customer booking dot class. Okay. And let us add this particular exception. Okay. So now what is going to be the return type of this particular method? The return type is going to be the class that we are providing here. So we can simply return it. So if I simply return it, we won't see this particular error. So you see that we are returning this particular thing. So we have written object mapper utility to convert the JSON response into Pojo. Now we are going to create booking class and we are going to pass this response.as thing to this particular thing. So JSON util, JSON utils dot JSON to Pojo. Here we need to provide this particular response.as spec, right? So let us provide this, right? And now it is also showing some exception. Let us add this into method signature, though we can use Lombok as well, right? Okay, so what it is returning? It is returning customer booking. Okay, customer booking, and let us capture it here. So we don't need to create any constructor or something, it will automatically happen, right? So object mapper, whenever we provide the JSON response as first argument and we provide the target class, it automatically takes care of it. I see that people are mostly confused in this. So we don't need to create object of it. It automatically happens in the background, right? Now we have got everything into this particular object. So now what we can do is out customer booking dot get booking, right? Similarly, we can get first name, right? Likewise, we can get last name, right? So we can get last name as well, right? If, for example, we want to get the check-in date, so that also we can get. Total price we get. So let me get booking dates, right? Inside that we can get check-in, right? Because if we take a look at this particular thing, so it has this main customer dot get booking. It will give this particular object. Inside that we are getting get booking dates, and inside that we are getting get check-in. So this is what I have written. So let me try to run it. So you see, we got first name as Space, last name as Kumar, and we got check-in date as well. So now we are able to convert the JSON response into Pojo classes. But one thing to notice that there should be apple-to-apple map between the JSON response fields and the Pojo classes. What does it mean? Let me show you from the slides. Meaning whatever the fields are available in JSON, they should exactly match with the Pojo classes that we have constructed. So if I, for example, go to IntelliJ and show you this particular location where we have constructed the Pojos. So this field first name should exactly match with this particular first name, right? So if you will notice, everything is in small, right? So first name. Also its type is string. So if they will differ, it won't be able to deserialize. To demonstrate, let me modify first name to capital first name, and let me remove this getter and setters as well because they will also be modified. Let me generate get and setter once again. And now let us go to create booking and let us modify this particular method as well. And now let us try to rerun it. So you see, it is saying unrecognized field first name because this is what is coming from JSON, while in Pojo we have defined a separate field. But what if we have such requirement, meaning we want to read some field from JSON, but we want to map a different field in Pojo, right? So for that purpose, what we can do is we can directly use @JSON property. This also comes from JSON library. So this is what I am going to use now. So I am going to booking, and on top of this particular field, I'm simply going to use @JSON property, and inside this we are going to provide the actual field, that is first name, right? So if you will provide like this, and if we run it now, it will work fine. Even it would be able to map it, meaning there is a separate field in JSON, while in Pojo we want to define a separate field, right? So this is how we can do it. So you see, we can do it, right? Now coming to the next thing, how to ignore fields while deserializing in JSON. Meaning, for example, in JSON response, there can be fields which we don't want to deserialize or which we don't want to verify or we don't want to extract, right? So for that purpose, we can use these particular notations. In case we want to ignore a particular field, we can use @JSON ignore on that particular field. In case there are multiple, we can define at class level and we can define those fields. So let us talk about this. Okay. So now I'm going to, for example, let us say we don't want to capture this @JSON ignore. Okay. And now if I'll run this at this point of time, what will happen is for Kumar, I'm going to get the default value of string, which is going to be null, meaning it is not getting deserialized. Okay. So you see for last name, because in create booking, we are getting last name, right? So that's why I'm getting null. What if we want to ignore multiple fields? So let us say we want to ignore this field as well as total price. So what we can do is we can do @JSON ignore properties, and inside this we can define both the fields, right? So let us, for example, define last name, and then we can provide comma, and then we can provide, for example, total price, right? Now let us try to print total price as well, because last name we are already printing. So let us try to print customer booking.get total price. So you see that I'm getting suggestions. This is because of GitHub Copilot. In case you want to understand what is GitHub Copilot and how to configure, you can check out my video in icon. So now let me run it. So for total price, we are going to get the default value, which is going to be 0, right? So this is how we can ignore some of the fields. So you see, we got null for last name and we got 0 for price. So this is how we can ignore. What if there is another requirement? Suppose in JSON there are like 50 fields, but we are interested in only 25 fields, right? So for that purpose, what we can do is we can define this particular annotation and we can provide ignore unknown equal to true, and whatever the fields that we need in class, that only we can define, right? So this is how we can use it. So this is at class level. In case we want to define at global level, then we can configure it at object member utility level. So first let us discuss about this, right? So let us try to understand. Suppose we are not interested in these fields, right? Meaning I don't want to use them at all. So I'm simply going to remove last name and let us remove total price, right? And let us remove this particular annotation as well, right? And let us remove corresponding get range setup. Okay. And as we are not going to use them, let us remove them from this particular class as well, right? And now let us try to run it. So this time we will face this error. Okay. So let us see. It won't be able to deserialize. I mean, why it won't be able to deserialize? Because in JSON there are like multiple fields, while in Pojo they are like not available those fields. Okay. So you see, this is what we're getting. Last time it is not able to recognize. So how to tackle? So we can simply provide @JSON ignore properties, ignore unknown equal to true. So using this, we can get only the desired fields. So let us define it at class level. @JSON ignore properties, ignore unknown equal to true, right? So now when we will try to run it, it will work fine. Okay, so it worked fine. So this is at class level, but when we will be working in real time, there can be multiple classes. So we will have to add this particular property at each class. Instead, what we can do is we can define this particular role within the utility. So as we are using this particular utility, so what we can do is using this particular object mapper dot configure, and here we can use this particular deserialization feature and unknown fail on unknown properties. We are going to make it as false, meaning we don't want it to fail if they are like not known fields, meaning if we want to ignore the fields. So let us run it once again and see. So you see, it is able to deserialize. Okay. So this is what I wanted to cover, guys, as part of current discussion. Thank you for watching. I would request you to please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you once again.